Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dan McCormick, and welcome to the Greatest Salesman podcast. It is a show that we have been coming live for the better part of 30 episodes. This is episode number 31 today. I couldn't be more thrilled. And if you're new to the show, this is truly on behalf of the great legend Og Mandino, 52 years ago when he penned that unbelievable parable with Hafid and Pathros, and that book just became an iconic classic instantly as soon as Rich DeVos stood on stage at the Amway Corporation and shared that with his audience. And lo and behold, I have the good fortune of being the ambassador to the company and finding the greatest salespeople in the world every single week. It is so much fun to do. If you're new to the show, just know that we love your comments. We love your questions. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you're from. If you're watching the show at a later date, you can like the show. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube. You can go to the webpage, thegreatestsalesman.com, thegreatestsalesman.com, and you can pick up all of the previous broadcasts. You can leave us a review on your favorite podcast site and all of those fantastic things. But it is always fantastic to welcome in my guest, and it is none other than Boise, Idaho today, Mindy Deeble. How are you doing?
I am doing great, doing awesome. So excited to be here. And truly, it's an honor. It really is an honor to be here. So
I remember, I'm just going to ask you the opening question in a moment, but I remember we sat down next to each other. We're at a mastermind group at the end of last year. And within minutes, you and I are talking, and you asked me, what is your favorite book? You remember, right?
I totally remember. Yes. I remember.
We strike up the conversation, and you told me your amazing experiences with it as well. But from a value proposition, of course, everybody's got busy schedules and busy lives. And I love to ask the greatest salespeople in the world at the top of each show, what are the three things that you think have shaped your life that has put you on stage in front of 20,000 people at a time, Celebrity Apprentice, top distributor in 2 companies, millions and tens of millions of dollars in distributors? What do you think those 3 things are that shape your life or each and every day of your life?
You know what? I loved this question, and it actually really made me think, because I realized, we always talk about that challenges make you stronger, right? But I realized that through my challenges, that is truly what made me stronger. And sometimes we don't like our challenges, but that is what makes us strong. So my top 3, my first one would be my amazing parents. I grew up in a family of 7 kids. I'm the oldest of 7. And I saw my parents struggle. Like, I really, we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a Wonder Bread salesman.
Wow.
So my mom was at home with all the kids. And I saw him leave 4 a.m. every Monday morning. He only had Wednesdays off, and he would work until 7, 8 o'clock at night. And I just saw him do that day in and day out, and that sacrifice. And I remember my mom, looking at the checkbook every day and worried about how she was going to pay the bills. And I remember going school clothes shopping and her worried about, calculating it out with a calculator. Like, okay, how are we going to pay for this? And at one point in my life, when I was 12 years old, this was like a pivotal moment for me, because I remember my parents, the economy had crashed, and my parents moved us into this tiny little shack. And it was just this tiny house. We had 1 bathroom, 9 people living in it, and 3 bedrooms. That was it. And I remember being really frustrated. There were 5 years of my life, because it was right during middle school, those really important times that you want to be accepted, you want to feel important, and really you just want to kind of fit in with everybody. And I was an oddball. I lived in this tiny little house, and didn't want anybody to know where I lived. But that experience, that 5 years of seeing my parents sacrifice, me realizing, that it was hard, even though I saw a work ethic, they taught me so much. They taught me to be grateful. They taught me, in fact, 3 things they taught me that was so important was gratitude, be kind, and be an asset. So be grateful, be kind, be an asset. But during that 5 years, I realized that if it's to be, it's up to me. Nobody else was going to make it happen but me, right? And it taught me accountability. So my first thing was really that, just that I learned accountability. I learned that, if it's to be, it's up to me. At 13 years old, I'm selling golf balls on a golf course,
Wow.
and I had to pay for everything. I paid for my cheerleading uniforms. I paid for even actually shampoo for my hair. I mean, it was just, that was what it was. But I'm so grateful for that experience because of what it taught me. So that was number one. Number two was marrying the love of my life, surrounding myself with people that inspired me. People that lift me higher. That was important. And my husband believed in me so much, and he just loved me and he supported me in everything that I did. And then of course, having my kids. So my family would be like number two. My kids gave me a bigger purpose in life, and they actually made me step to a higher level because I had to perform at my greatest, right? With love and with service and adding value, that I had to learn all that just by serving my kids, and wanting them to also rise to the occasion. So I had to be that example. So that would be number two.
Right.
Number three, I would say, is the introduction to personal growth. At 20 years old, I had some great mentors. I was introduced to the network marketing industry at 20 years old, and I had icons who taught me a ton. Now, the interesting thing is at 20 years old, I didn't make a lot of money in network marketing. I really didn't. But it was the opportunity that my circumstances don't define what I can create, right? So whatever I'm at today, I wrote the script, but that doesn't mean that I can't change that script. And so the greatest salesman in the world was introduced to me at 20 years old.
Wow.
And that was huge for me. And then also The Magic of Thinking Big. Those two books literally changed my life. I will tell you a little story about the salesman in the world. I remember, reading about Hayford. And I remember just relating to him so much because I was starving. I was hungry. I wanted more in my life. I didn't know how to create it, but I wanted more. And it was like, I just related so much to him because I was willing to do whatever it took. I believe that, there's three types of people. There's winners, there's quitters, and there's winners who haven't won yet, right? That's it. I don't believe in failures. I just believe in they're quitters, right? But I was a winner, but I just hadn't won yet. That winning attitude was in my heart, but I needed a vehicle, to make it happen. And I didn't realize that it was personal growth. That was really my vehicle, because the more that I grew, the more that I could add value to other people. And then obviously the bigger my income would be. And so the greatest salesman in the world, and then The Magic of Thinking Big. So fast forward a little bit, sometimes we read books, but we don't implement them. And that was me. At 20 years old, I had literally, by the time I was 26, 4 kids.
Wow.
And so, I went like crazy and worked like crazy. But when I was 30, I thought, you know what? So I got out of network marketing. I went into traditional business. And because of personal growth, we did really, really well in traditional business. But I just remember we thought we should go into the franchise world. And so we started a truck bed lining company. And the very first day that we opened the doors, I knew we made a massive mistake. We put our savings into it. We put our whole, I don't know if you've ever done this, Dan, before, but our butt was on the line, right? We had a second mortgage on our home. And I remember thinking, we have big problems, like huge problems. And a thought came to me from a mentor when I was 20. He said, listen, when you have problems, you can overcome anything. You can overcome any challenges, but you have to become bigger than those problems. And I'm thinking, okay, well, how do I become bigger? I got to start personally growing again. Like I got to start implementing the things that I know to do, but I got to dive in again. So I grabbed The Magic of Thinking Big, that book, because of the hope it gave me. And from when I was 20, right? It taught me like so much. The same with The Greatest Salesman in the World. But the magic of thinking big, I grabbed, and I'm not really sure why, because those two books were life-changing to me. In that book, it said to make a little commercial for yourself or a statement, something of what do you want your life to be like? Don't look at where your life is right now, but what do you want it to look like? And you have to know at that age, okay, I was driving, a Chevy Corsica, 1988 Chevy Corsica. This is 2004, right? But it had like 1 million miles on it. It had no air conditioning, right? It was just crazy. I wasn't a strong business person. I learned a lot, but I wasn't like, I was a mom of 4 kids. At that time, I was basically a preschool teacher. But in this statement, I knew in order to get to the next level of my life, I had to become bold. I had to be strong, and I had to, be more of a people person and a leader, right? So, and I never thought of myself as a salesperson either, by the way. But in that statement, I wrote out everything that I wanted my life to be like. Like I said, in fact, I wrote it word for word. I am Mindy Deeble, an important, young, successful, kick-butt businesswoman. I get what I want. I have products and services that everyone needs and desires. They want what I have. I talk to people everywhere I go. I love people. And I wrote out the amount of money that I was creating. And you have to know at that time, it was 20 times more than what I had in my bank account, right? Or that I couldn't even fathom that much money. But I knew that other people had done it. So I thought, why not me? And if I'm writing my script, right, then why not go for the biggest thing ever, right? And so I just wrote out this massive goals. But it was not goals like I'm gonna be it. It was like, this is who I am. This is what I'm creating. And here's what happened. See, I knew with this truck bed lining company, I would have to go out and sell. I would have to go talk to big business people. And that scared me to death because I wasn't a big business person in my mind, right? And so I would say all this, this statement. And then I would, at the very end, it said, Mindy Deeble, nothing can stop you. Nothing. You look good. You feel good. You're enthusiastic and you are persistent. Failure can't cope with persistence. Go do what it takes. You've got this. You're a multi-millionaire. Go forward. Just do it. And I'd shut my Chevy Corsica door and I'd walk in there like I owned the place. And you guys, I was kicking butt. I was selling people like crazy because what comes into your mind comes into your life. And that's what I love about The Greatest Salesman, is because those scrolls taught me persistent. They taught me so many things, and it made me who I am today because I attracted that energy to myself. Within 5 years of that statement that I wrote out, I had created everything in that statement.
Wow.
And so I know the power of thoughts, right? And when you said you have this podcast for The Greatest Salesman in the World, this is a classic book.
Yeah.
That when I tell people I've read it, a lot of times they're like, I've never heard of it, or they think I'm super ancient, right? That I even have this book. But I will tell you, we gave this to our entire team because it is so powerful. And it's just 10 success principles that if you follow them every single day, you really, truly can create whatever you want. That's how much I believe in them. So anyway.
Wow.
Hopefully those 3 points helped you.
It's fantastic. And what's amazing, and I want to welcome our audience in that are making all these comments. I mean, Rapika, and we've got Australia, and we've got Nevada, and we've got Chicago, all over the place. People are chiming in and putting are you able to see some of the comments on the screen?
Yes. And it looks like, they're reading these books too, as what I'm seeing right now. That's awesome.
Could be some of your friends and team and stuff like that. But, I always love when people give thought to those 3 things, because obviously in the 10 commandments, the number one thing with a promise is to honor our parents. And I think you did that today beautifully. And I grew up in a single parent home,
Mhm.
and it was a crushing time for me because I didn't have the connection with mom and dad and the family. And so I had a different paradigm than you. I come from, I want to do it differently than how I saw it happen, right?
Yeah.
And so your kids, and to be able to honor your husband the way you do, I love it when you guys post pictures of all the joy that you're having on Facebook, marrying the love of your life, your family, and then personal growth. So those three things are fantastic. And so, it was interesting when we first met. I mean, obviously, you are the person that you wrote down to be, because I could feel our connection in
Yeah.
minutes with your energy for personal development, your love for people, your interest in other people. And so at the age of 20, I think you mentioned that you actually first signed up in the Amway Corporation. Was that right?
I did actually. Yep.
Amazing.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's where it all started, of course, for The Greatest Salesman in the World.
Mm-hmm.
And do you recall if it was an easy read for you when you started, or did you have to go back and do it? Like I had to do it twice.
Yeah. I did read it twice. The first time I read it, I just loved the scrolls, honestly, because I was so hungry, Dan, that all I cared about is, and I heard from mentors, follow the scrolls, because they're the key to success. And if you follow these principles, you'll understand. I didn't understand what it really meant to, I will persist until I succeed. You know what I mean? I didn't really understand all that, but because I was so young, and I didn't understand that the pathway to success is failure. You're going to have to go through some failures in order to get there. But I just ingrained those in my mind. And so, I think I read the story once, and then I just really got into the scrolls. And then I read the story again. But every time I read it, like, it's so powerful. And in fact, you reminded me when I ran into you again, or that when we met, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get that book out again. I got to read it again. Because it was such an important part of my entire life. And in fact, so much so that I got my son's whole crew of salespeople reading it now. I read it again in December, and they're all reading it. I believe every single person in the world should read that book. Yeah. I truly do, because of the success principles. It makes you a better person, but it also helps you sell yourself and be who you really were born to be. That's what I believe. So,
you're an amazing commercial for it, but more importantly, the principles are just so deeply ingrained in you. And it was interesting for me because I kind of look back on my life and thinking that it took 7 years for them to really get into me to the point to where I could trust it all. And
yeah,
I'm taking notes on what you're saying. Here, you said it took 5 years for you to kind of live if we use Napoleon Hill's comment, I'm not sure what the magic of thinking big calls it, but the main definite purpose statement is what Napoleon Hill calls it. And you truly embody that, and you just read it to us you just know that. So 5 years, what did you do during the 5 years when it was tough?
Yeah, when it was tough. You know what? I ingrained it so much in me that it was who I was. You have to understand that in order to get to the next level of your life, you have to think differently, you have to act differently, you have to talk differently, because no change equals no change, right? So it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel out there when you first start. And it did for me. Okay. So when I first started reading that statement, it didn't even feel like I was even that person at all. I mean, I'm driving a Chevy Corsica, and my dream was to have a Porsche, okay, and a black, shiny Porsche. And so I would say, I own a black, shiny, brand new Porsche. I can smell the leather, and here I'm driving this clunkety old car. But I remember driving one day, and I started to feel like I was driving this Porsche. Like I could picture this Porsche. I felt it. I started seeing that this is the person that I am. This is who I am, and this is what I'm creating. And you got to know that you have to be that person before you are that person. Okay, so you have to create that energy, because you attract to you exactly who you are being. And so in the beginning, I just said it 3 times a day. Every day, just morning, middle of the day, night. But I started saying it with pictures in my mind, okay, because that's super important. And then of course, when it got tough, I would say that statement. And there were many tough times. There were many times when I would think, man, am I ever really going to be able to create this, But I just never give up. In fact, I say persist until the miracle. I will persist until I succeed, right? That scroll is amazing, but persist until the miracle. And as long as you continue to go every single day, do your very best, eventually you will win. But that was just my attitude. I just got to, I will persist until I succeed, and, never give up, and just always working on you. Everything else will come together if you always are working on you and you're implementing everything you're reading, and not just reading it, okay, but implement it every single day, and then teach it too. Just teach it. Be that example. Be the very best, and you can create anything. So, there's my nephew.
You are the
Hi, Tyler.
Tyler, isn't that great? So great. Tyler, I look forward to meeting you one day. She's amazing. There's no doubt she's a role model for many. And I want to go to the previous comment, if I can have my producer put Rhonda's comment back up there. And it's so powerful when Rhonda says this, that she loves this show. Now, the fact of the matter is that we all resonate with principles. And one of the great things, I think, Mindy, for me, is when I read Magic of Thinking Big, when I got my autographed copy out for you. The autograph from Og.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool.
Somebody sent that to me 18 years ago because they knew I talked about him all the time. So
wow.
But Rhonda, what Rhonda's saying here is, and the reason we resonate with it is because we resonate with truth. Mm-hmm. We resonate with principles. And to me, these writers of this era, they didn't write with the idea of slapping a 4-letter word on the cover of a book and putting it on Facebook for the wow factor, or LinkedIn for the wow factor. It was just who they were. They were just real people. I only met Og one time, but he was just Og. He didn't try to be anybody else. And I think that's what's great about Rhonda's comment here. And I mean, the comments that you can't see right now are so long. Rapika quoting you and writing out your 3 things and driving the black Porsche and the smell of the leather and all of those things are so fantastic. And you mentioned something here. There it is right there.
I love it.
That's great. I can smell the leather. I just love it. And persist until the miracle. Mm-hmm. Love that.
Yeah.
Scroll number 3 I got for you right here too. That's the cardstock version.
Ooh, I love that.
That you're commenting on, so I can just pull that up. But I want to go back to what you said here a few minutes ago, and I thank the audience for their amazing comments. And I look forward to picking people out of the audience and interviewing them on the show one day because they're so into it and they're so good at it. But you talked about how you just read the story, but then you just read the scrolls over and over and over, and I did that too. And I shortchanged a lot of my young adult life by just thinking about scroll number 2 because it was such a void in my life. Growing up in a single parent home, growing up without structure and love and all of the things that taught in scroll number 2, I will greet this day with love in my heart. But Paul Blanchard from the Og Mandino Company was my guest a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And I asked him about, what are one of your favorite things you'd like to talk about in the scrolls? And he mentioned what you just mentioned. He says, I want to go back to Hafid and Pathros and them having their dialogue and the discussion and all that kind of stuff. I've now read that probably 3 or 4 times this year. I love the story. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I want to encourage people to not just read the scrolls because there's a story that's quite powerful there. So
it is powerful. And he had to persist as well. I mean, all of that, it's just the failure can't cope with persistence. You're going to continue to fail your way to success. I mean, that's truly what it is. Thinking about the scrolls, I actually, wrote this down, but there's a few things like different times in my life, the scrolls have been more important to me. They were all important, but there were certain ones that were more important. So like when I first read the book, honestly, Today I Begin a New Life was really what hit me really strong, because I realized that it doesn't matter where I'm at. I can drop the baggage and I can just move forward. And I wrote the script, but I can change that script. Today, it's a blank canvas and I'm going to write a new script, right? So that was the first thing. And then, of course, it was, I will persist until I succeed, right? Because there were a lot of times when I thought, man, this is tough. This is rough. But there was a point in my life where I really, really enjoyed and just realized how important it was that I am nature's greatest miracle.
Wow.
We're all so unique, and we all have so many talents, and we all have so many gifts to share with the world, and nobody can replace who you are. Like, nobody can take your place. And I learned that along the way, because I used to compare myself with every single person around me. Comparison is so terrible, but that was who I was, especially how I grew up. I just wanted to be like everybody else, when I was young, and I wasn't. I'm living in this tiny little house. I was embarrassed to bring people to it. And so when I finally got to a point where I could just be like everybody else, then of course I was comparing myself all the time. And I realized, you know what? Nobody can take my place. No. And each and every one of you, nobody can take your place. And I am so grateful for that principle, because it is so powerful. It's so important. So anyway, I'm nature's greatest miracle. That was huge for me in my life. It has been huge for me in my life. But there's so many different scrolls actually that I've really made important in my life at different times.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the one that is really hitting me hard right now, that is, I will live each day as if it was my last. I have now 5 grandbabies.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing how short life is. We got to live in the moment and enjoy every moment that we have here, because we don't know when the time is going to come when we won't be here anymore. And so that's the strong one for me right now. But they're all just powerful in so many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously like ancient wisdom literature. It's like opening the Bible and seeing a scripture that you saw 20, 30 years ago, and you say, wait, I didn't get that then, but that parable, that principle, that teaching moment changes because you and I change. And if anybody's joined us late today, my name's Dan McCormick, the host of the Greatest Salesman podcast. It is just great to have you. We love your comments. Thank you so much for all that you contribute to the show. Every week, I get to hand select these amazing people, and none other than Mindy Deeble today, who's been at the top of her game for many, many years now. And if anybody needs to reach out to Mindy Deeble, just like it says on the screen, you can do so on Facebook. You can message her, and I hope you'll share this. You can also take our podcast today and share it to your team page, share it to your personal page if you want to expose other people to the greatest salesman in the world. One of the great things about the company, the Augmentino company, is for 20 years, it's been a coaching company, coaching people through the Augmentino materials. You took the Habit Finder the other day. We measure people's thoughts and how they're aligned, because Mindy, you and I have worked with thousands of people, and we know we've seen a lot of people that just want the money, but they don't want to do the work.
Right.
And, it took me 7 years to really appreciate the work. But on behalf of the Augmentino company, I just want to give a shout out to what is new at the Augmentino company, because all of us are on this thing called Facebook, or we're in social media. And what the Augmentino company has done is partnered with a white hat hacker from the most amazing places in the world to help create a course to help you be more effective on Facebook, to help you be more effective. We call it Cracking the Social Code. It's powered by the Habit Finder. And as our little commercial says, that social currency has never been as valuable as it is right now. We know that to be true. And Facebook is the largest vault. It's the largest bank in the world. And if you want to get to connect with more interested people and do it the way Og would do it, like true connection, then we really encourage you to open up this link right here at habitfinder.com/social VIP, because it's an entire game changer to understand what the algorithm is asking you to do and what not to do, when to do it, when not to do it. And if you go to cracking the social code, or habitfinder.com/social VIP. You can start cracking the code today. And thank you so very much, Mindy, for taking the time. I know it's been since we met last year, I've been saying we got to find a Wednesday, and between your kids and my grandkids and my work schedule, the holidays and all the things going on in the world, it is really fantastic that you could take the time here today and see people like your nephew and others on your team that'll truly enjoy this and recognize you for what you are, which is the greatest salesperson in the world, because you've lived it, you've embodied it in such a unique way. And it was interesting that you talked about several different scrolls here. And I wonder if we couldn't challenge our listeners today, whether it's live or 6 months, 6 years, whatever it is, to go back and reread what you said. And that's "Today I begin a new life."
Yeah.
While many of our listeners today may not be addicted to the bottle like Og was, when he wrote that, he's going through 10 years of a living hell of being an alcoholic. But what is it that, I'm not asking Mindy this, I'm asking the world this. What is your bottle? Is it relationships? Is it fear? Is it money? What is it, so that you can say today that today I begin a new life. Today I shed my old skin, which hath been too long suffered the bruises of failure and the wounds of mediocrity. And I know you grew up in that home with the Wonder Bread salesman. And what struck me about that, I'll never forget, we had a toaster when I was a kid. And I remember the Wonder Bread, the white wrapper with the blue, the red, and the yellow had fallen on top of the toaster. And so every day when I put toast in, it said Wonder Bread because the plastic had stuck, We
had the same thing, exactly the same thing. That's hilarious.
Who can forget the Wonder Bread? But
do you remember Hostess cake?
Hostess cake, yeah.
And ding dongs and all of that. So my dad, he would sell those as well. So Wonder Bread, it was Continental Baking that he worked for, but yeah, Hostess and Wonder Bread. It's crazy.
Good stuff. Okay, so let me see if I can't shift gears for a minute here to really add some value. So what I'm holding in my hands is all 10 of the scrolls right here.
Okay.
So Og had this unbelievable philosophy of living, a way of writing that was just very, very unique.
Amazing.
He did it in an amazing way. I like to think of it as a system for personal development success. You and I met, we were with Justin Prince, who was on the show. I think he was episode number 10. If you have not seen the Justin Prince interview, everybody go back and watch this man. He's amazing. But you and I spent 3 straight days with your partner, Jen, and maybe a dozen other distributors in the world, top high producing people.
Yeah.
And we talked about not just a system for personal development, but a system for business. And I wonder if you could shed light on, to be at the top of your game, to be on a stage with 20,000 people, to be on the Celebrity Apprentice, to do all the things you've done. When you talk to an audience like we're talking to here today, it's the greatest salesman. But when it comes to executing your business, how do you look at systems today and playing a role in that?
You know what? Well, it first starts with you, right? If you want a system in your team, then you first have to be, disciplined. And whatever you expect from your team, the speed of the team is the speed of the leader. And so I have a morning ritual. So I have something, it's a system, right? Get up in the morning and there are certain things that I do every single day to get my day going, to, get ahead of the game and to make things happen in my life. So it starts, I believe, with you. And then, of course, duplication. I came from a franchise world, and duplication is everything. It's key to have success. And so, but your team is going to duplicate what you're doing. So you just always remember that. So if you want people out, producing or out doing sales or whatever it is, whatever field you're in, make sure you're the one that's doing that you're the example of that, and that you also have your own daily ritual. In fact, when my everything exploded for me in my life in a really massive, incredible way, it's when I got on a daily ritual. In fact, I was struggling really big time. I had reading the books. I was, trying to do, and I'll say trying to do everything that it took to make it happen. But I didn't have a system for myself, and that's because a lot of times we let distractions take over, and we just kind of go along with life instead of us being intentional about life. So having a system makes everything intentional. Being intentional about what you're creating every single day to get the results that you want. Otherwise, you're just taking whatever results come to you if you're not intentional with those systems. And so I don't know if that answered that question, but for me, it's about me first being intentional, creating a daily ritual for myself, and then implementing that and, creating systems within our team to make that all happen. So
yeah, no, that's fantastic, because everybody watching today, regardless of what company they represent, will have a different comp plan and a different system, a different brick of products that they're going to use, and et cetera. So yeah, I just had such an amazing experience with the thinking process of the system that Og had, or if you even look prior to that, the system that Ben Franklin had, right? Working on those 13 virtues for 64 years of his life.
Yeah.
And then Og giving us this, and then you created you found even a more personal way to do it when you had your main definite purpose statement, and you literally embodied that system. You willed it, you visualized it, you tasted it, you smelled it. All of the senses came alive for you. Yeah. And so did you ever buy that black Porsche?
Yes, of course I did. Yes. I told you everything that I put in that statement, I created in 5 years. Yeah. So yes, I did, for sure. And it was unbelievable. But here's what's weird, or not weird, crazy, okay, is that I knew it was mine. Like when I wasn't surprised when I got it. You know what I mean? Because I had been, talking about it for, gosh, I think within 3 years I got the Porsche. But, I was intentional about it. That was me. That's who I am. This is what I'm creating. And so it wasn't a surprise when I finally got that. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Intentional in every way, living it in every way. And now, how do you have a system for how you now get the message of your personal development to your teams? I mean, you mentioned that you give the book to a lot of people and things like that. I mean, I remember interviewing one of our early guests, Robert Hollis, and he actually uses The Greatest Success in the World by Og Mandino. He loves the God Memorandum. And so he made every new person read that book. So how do you go about incorporating self-help personal development into your newest people that want that black Porsche?
Yeah, so we have what we call a daily 5. Okay, so and one of them is 15 minutes of growth every single day. My mentor years ago, when I was 20 years old, he said, how did he say it? He said, 15 minutes a day will take all of your financial problems away. Okay, and so every day I would listen, and I've learned too that listening, I learn differently than when I read. And so I actually do both. Because I'll get different things from books when I listen, and I will also get different things from books when I read. Yeah. So, and then I highlight. So here's how I do it. I will read a book. I'll highlight the points that really, hit me hard. And then I'll go back and I'll reread the highlights again. And I'll think about how can I teach this, because we learn even more when we teach it. How am I going to implement it, and how am I going to teach it? And so every day, what am I going to implement? What am I going to teach to get the results? But part of our system then is, number one, actually, is 15 minutes a day of daily growth, whether it's reading, whether it's listening to a book. Some people only like to listen. Some people like to read only. It doesn't matter. Just make sure it happens, listening to successful people every single day. We are who we hang out with. And so if, I learned this too. If you want to be a champion, you got to hang out with 5 champions, right?
Yeah.
And the only way that I could hang out with 5 champions when I was 20 years old is books, success and learning those success principles. And so they were in my car with me everywhere I drove. They're still in my car with me everywhere I drive. Og Mandino, David Schwartz, all kinds of people, John Maxwell, Grant Cardone. But they're with me everywhere I go.
I love it. I was talking to the author of Big Ideas last night, and he actually did research on what you just said. And that is that when you take pen to paper and you write things down, things shift in the mind. There's neurological, whether they're neurotransmitters or whatever, that change. And so today it's important that we take time. So I do that at 5 a.m. I have my journal and I'm writing, and it seems like there's tremendous, that old adage that success leaves clues. Well, every Wednesday at 2:00 when we go live, there's a lot of success clues that you're sharing with people that have come alive in your life that I hope that our listeners today and tomorrow and next year and whenever get a chance to hear it can also participate in and make it theirs. And I think that's what you did with your main definite purpose statement. So, wow, my notes are full here, Mindy Deeble. I am so honored that you took the time to be with us. I love the time, the value, and I wonder in closing if you could just share to any of those that might be listening today that have not been on that stage yet. Maybe they have not had, they can taste it, but they haven't maybe found the rhythm, the system, the success. What do you say to those people that are on the journey that haven't tasted it yet?
The first thing is just understand that focus is the key to success. Being intentional about every single thing that you do. See, I became intentional when I made that statement, and then I focused on it all the time. I mean, at least 3 times a day. And I was intentional about what I was creating. So number one, you got to know where you're going. It's hard to get someplace if you don't know where you're going, right? And so first and foremost, write down exactly what you want and put it in exactly what you want. And don't think anything is too big or outrageous. It's what you want. If you had the thought, then you have the power to do it. Okay, so if you've thought about it before, don't worry about how you're going to get there. You have the power to do it. Once you make a definite decision, the universe will respond to you. Okay, the right people will come into your life to help you grow, the right people to help you make things happen, the right resources. Everything will come into play if you are intentional, but you got to be intentional. So that's number one. And then understand the mindset of a champion. Just know that you're going to be excited right now, but then I promise you tomorrow you're going to have distractions. I mean, that's just what it is. I have 4 kids. I have grandbabies. I remember when I first made this statement, I had a job and we owned a company. My husband was traveling everywhere. There were tons of distractions. We had emails to get to. We had bills to pay that I wasn't sure how I was going to pay them, and I could have easily focused on all of those things. And and of course there are things that no matter what, you're going to have to get to. However, make sure that your statement, that's in concrete. Okay, just that's always there. A mentor taught me this a long time ago. So I just have to tell this story because it really has hit home with me. I want you to think about this. Let's say that, exactly what you want. Okay, it's out there. It's there. And think about it kind of like you're going to go on vacation. Okay, so Vegas is my destination. I'm super excited. I'm going to go on vacation. And so I get in my car and I start driving, right? And I'm excited. I'm going to get to Vegas. But then all of a sudden, some bugs start hitting my windshield. I'm driving down the freeway and all these bugs are hitting my windshield. And pretty soon we call these the bug guts of life, okay? Distractions of life. But my windshield is completely covered with bugs. Now, could you imagine? And I want you to know, this is what 97% of the people do when they set a goal and they're running for their goal. They start focusing on the distractions, on the bug guts of life. Wow. Could you imagine if I'm driving to Vegas and I start focusing on those bug guts, what's going to happen? I'm going to crash, right? I'm going to veer off. I'm going to crash. I'm never going to make it to Vegas. And that's why 97% of the people never make it to what they created, because they get distracted. And so focus is the key. This is why the scrolls are so valuable. This is why reading your statement, 3 times a day, knowing exactly where you're going, then you will have that clear vision. You'll create the energy and the resources around you to win. So that's what I would tell you to do if you want to get to the next level of your life.
Yeah. Wow. What an honor. What a joy. What a thrill. Thank you so very much. I just can't even tell you how much I've enjoyed it. And I hope our listeners have. Well, I know they have. Their comments are amazing. And Blanca, it's good to be with you. Thailand, it's good to have you here. And Australia and all over North America and Europe and Scotland. And it's great to have everybody here today. And boy, just in closing, I always love wrapping it up by saying thank you for sharing the 3 things. You put it on your Facebook page that you're going to share the 3 things: your parents, marrying the love of your life and having your family, and then personal growth. There's no mysteries of the mind on why you are who you are, the leader that you are, the person that you are, the contributor that you are after you've shared here today. And from Dan McCormick to you, I say big thanks and a big hug and thank you, and look forward to having you back hopefully in the future. And I know, Jen, we talked about having your partner on too.
Yes.
In the future, we're going to do that. So if you're with us today on the Greatest Salesman podcast, she is Mindy Deeble. You can find her on Facebook, Mindy Deeble on Facebook. I'm Dan McCormick on behalf of the Augmandino Company and the Greatest Salesman podcast. Have the greatest day of your life, and bye for now.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.